Once, giving in to temptation can ruin an entire future life. Mahek Bukhari never suspected what her funny dance videos with her rising TikTok star daughter would lead to. Help this channel grow. Like the video, try the new hype feature, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. Mahek Bukhari, a promising TikTok star known under the pseudonym May, was 24 years old, while her mother Ansreen was 44. Mother and daughter once appeared together in a cute dance video where they moved synchronously to rhythmic music. The clip gained a huge number of views. All viewers unanimously wrote that they looked more like sisters than parent and child. As a result, Ansreen gained a certain fame and began appearing more often with her daughter in videos and live streams. One day during a live broadcast, May and her mom were reading comments, chatting with viewers and answering questions. One commenter, clearly from a fake account, asked the girl to have her mother call him. May just laughed it off. She didn't notice how Ansreen's face twitched at that moment. Apologizing to the viewers, the woman went to the bathroom and nervously put the phone to her ear. She begged the person on the other end to stop stalking her and not to involve her daughter. She even threatened the police, but the caller had no intention of calming down. The fact was that he had somehow obtained her husband's phone number and offered to send him hot videos featuring his wife. The woman's heart almost jumped out of her chest. She immediately found those messages on her husband's phone. She was lucky that her husband paid no attention to them, deciding it was just another hater. The Bukhari family was quite well known on social media thanks to Mahek, who had created the account and periodically showed her relatives to the public. On TikTok, the girl presented the image of a proper religious family, and now, because of the mother, her entire career was under threat. Moreover, it could destroy Ansreen's marriage and ruin their future. That was the exact threat she received in a new text message on her phone. One click, and everything would collapse. The marriage, her daughter's career, her own reputation, and social status. But, as it turned out, Ansreen and her daughter Mahek decided to do anything to prevent that, even if several people had to suffer. This story happened relatively recently in Stoke-on-Trent, Staffordshire, United Kingdom. There is a platform on the internet called Azar. It resembles chat roulette where you can meet and talk to people from all over the world. Users can set filters based on their preferences, location, gender, age, etc. The platform gained huge popularity during the pandemic, when people were locked in their homes and bored. One day, Ansreen's niece came to visit. While the woman was doing housework, the girl sat in the living room video chatting with a young man around 20 from the UK. The schoolgirl was proud that her relatives were famous and proudly told the guy that her cousin was the famous blogger May and that she was currently staying at their house. She even turned the camera to show her Aunt Ansreen to prove she wasn't making it up and was really visiting the Bukharis. The niece said this was May's mom and that the videos where she danced with her daughter had gained a huge number of views. The woman waved at the camera, smiled, and went back to her chores. She didn't take such remote communication seriously and wasn't really listening to what the teenagers were talking about. Mahek wanted to become famous not only in the UK, she was doing everything possible to become a star. She danced to trendy tracks, used all kinds of video features, and tried to attract attention in every way. Mahek even persuaded her mom to dance with her, and didn't lose. Videos featuring Ansreen gained hundreds of times more views and comments. The TikToker started involving not only her mom, but also her brother and even her father in filming. True, the father didn't appear in videos very often because he didn't quite understand youth trends and was quite serious in the clips, but it all looked very sweet. Together, it created the image of a wonderful, loving family. Mahek claimed to be a devout Muslim woman and wrote a lot about her faith and morality in society. She talked about how she loved and valued her mom, who was both her best friend and sister to her. But her main interest and ultimate goal was to become an influencer in the fashion world. Mahek dreamed of advertising fashionable clothes on her social media. wanted famous brands to send her outfits and she would tag them. She had already received several offers but dreamed of more. With 126,000 followers at the time, she earned money through brand promotions and events across the UK. She was also invited to promote local restaurants, bars, and especially shisha lounges. Each time she took her mom with her because the image of a conservative family didn't allow a girl to go to such entertainment venues alone. And her mom really was her best friend. Mahek even convinced Ansreen to create her own social media account, insisting that the number of mom's fans would also allow her to earn from advertising. Perhaps that was exactly what Ansreen had always dreamed of. She was 44, worked as a managing director at a security firm. All her life, someone else had made decisions for her. As a teenager, she wanted to be a flight attendant, but her parents said they had found her a husband and she would marry him and have children. Ansreen did just that. She was quite happy in family life, but she had never had that youthful period full of emotions when new horizons make your head spin. She went straight from teenager to housewife. Outwardly, Ansreen's life was perfect. She had everything one could dream of: her own house, a wonderful, hard-working husband who fully supported the family, grown children. But lately, she got a special thrill from going to bars and communicating with energetic, carefree young people dressed in bright, fun clothes. Ansreen was delighted with this new life. She created her own account and regularly checked her messages. One day, among several meaningless messages, one caught her eye. The man was named Sakib Hussein, and for some reason his appearance seemed familiar. It was the same guy her niece had been video chatting with while visiting their house. The comment was quite innocent, but Ansreen felt there was more behind it. Regular correspondence began between her and Sakib. Then the communication smoothly moved to daily phone calls. They called each other up to 5 times a day when Ansreen's husband wasn't home. It was like cute teenage lovers' chatter. No matter what the woman was doing, Sakib was always there, on the other end of the line. Mahek knew her mom was talking to some guy but didn't think much of it, considering them just friends. It never even crossed her mind that a romance was developing between them. Sakib was young, attractive, in good physical shape. But most importantly, he was literally obsessed with her. According to him, he had just turned 27, while Ansreen was 44. A 17-year age difference didn't seem so huge. An adult woman was flattered by the attention of a young man. Sakib was of legal age, so nothing illegal was happening. Only moral standards were violated. In reality, Sakib had lied. He was 18 when they started talking. But the guy did everything to appear older. He tried hard to please his beloved. He would suddenly appear at a shisha lounge or bar where Ansreen was helping her daughter promote the venue and pay for their treats. He sent gifts to her home that she had to unwrap in front of the whole family, pretending she had ordered them herself online. Eventually, their relationship changed. They couldn't meet often because they lived in different cities. Plus, Ansreen was married and had 2 children, so she didn't want to arouse suspicion. But when they did meet in hotels in Birmingham and London, everything became more and more explicit. Even during video calls, sparks flew that could burn everything inside. They often engaged in intimate activities hundreds of kilometers apart. It was an exciting, scandalous affair where Ansreen was essentially walking on a knife's edge. She could be caught at the worst moment, and the consequences would be devastating. As it turned out, this was actually Ansreen's second affair since marriage. The first was with a married man who also had children. So in that sense, they understood each other and didn't demand more than just physical connection. Both were cheating on their partners, but weren't planning to destroy their families. For them, it was a kind of outlet. But with Sakib, it was completely different. He wasn't married, had no children. He was young, hot-headed, and madly in love with Ansreen. She was his ultimate goal. After 2 years of this affair, the woman decided to end it. She met Sakib at a hotel and told him she wanted to focus on her marriage. Ansreen was tired of constant stress, felt guilty toward her husband and children. She could no longer lead a double life. The lovers spent one last night together, and the next morning it was as if nothing had been said the day before. Sakib started sending messages non-stop, clinging to Ansreen. Now that he knew she wanted to leave, he did everything to keep her. The guy called the woman 5 to 10 times a day, asking what she was doing and where she went. Her timid attempts to explain that her husband was starting to suspect something had no effect. It didn't stop Sakib. As soon as he felt Ansreen pulling away, he sent her photos of designer items on their way to her house. Even though his adult girlfriend refused, saying she didn't need anything, he ignored her and kept buying gifts. At the same time, the guy began showing control. If Ansreen refused the surprises, he got angry. Finally, in December 2021, the woman gathered her courage and broke up with Sakib for good. She expected swearing, endless calls, angry emails, and was even mentally prepared for it. But she hoped the guy would eventually calm down. It would all get boring for him, and he would move on. But instead, Sakib sent Ansreen her explicit photos and videos from their intimate calls. Then he bombarded her with messages that if she didn't answer, he would forward everything to her husband or, worse, make it public online. Ansreen felt there was only one way out of this. At that time, her daughter Mahek, the rising TikTok star, had no idea what was happening behind her back. She didn't even suspect who was posting explicit deepfake videos with her face that were destroying her life and reputation. They looked so realistic that the unsuspecting public could easily take them for real. It was especially painful because Mahek had built her career as a religious, multifaceted woman. Fake photos and videos could ruin everything she had worked so hard for, and even her friends started asking questions. Initially, the girl couldn't imagine that her own mother was to blame. In December 2021, after Ansreen broke up with Sakib, she gathered her courage and told her daughter everything. She did it not just to unburden her soul, but rather to get help in the difficult situation she had created herself. Ansreen felt she had no other choice, being trapped by her own desires. First, Mahek threw a huge tantrum. She was furious and attacked her mother for cheating on her father and risking destroying not only her own life, but the lives of those close to her. Then her anger shifted to Sakib. Mahek paced the living room, getting angrier and angrier. The guy was the main threat to both her family and her entire career she had worked so hard for. The girl was determined to do anything to avoid the negative consequences of her mother's secret affair. Mahek calmed her mother by saying she would take care of Sakib herself. She would ask her friends to deal with him, after which he wouldn't even dare say Ansreen's name. Mahek set in motion a plan that would land 8 people in prison. First, she called her best friend, 29-year-old Rakan Karwan. She told him she was being blackmailed and asked for help and protection. Rakan had no idea Mahek's mom was involved and that the blackmail was actually directed at her. He agreed to act as a mediator between Sakib and his friend. After meeting the guy, Rakan found out that Sakib first wanted £5,000 to leave the Bukhari family alone. The blackmailer claimed he had spent that much while they were on good terms and wanted cash back. Now Mahek and her friends faced a difficult choice of how to deal with Sakib without getting into trouble themselves. After long discussions, they chose the car method. They contacted the extortionist and arranged a meeting in a Tesco supermarket car park, promising to bring the full amount. The meeting was set for 1:30 a.m., when the car park would be empty. The supermarket was roughly halfway between the cities where the former lovers lived. Sakib agreed. The only thing he didn't know was that not only the Bukhari women were coming to the meeting, but several other people as well. On 11th February 2022, Mahek, Ansreen, Rakan, and 5 more friends split into 2 cars and drove to the empty supermarket car park. They deliberately parked the cars at a distance from each other to have room for maneuver. At first, not all the friends knew why they were there. Rakan and another friend got out and disappeared from sight to create the impression that the women had come alone. Most likely, they planned to jump Sakib right there in the car park, but there were several things they couldn't foresee. First of all, the guy didn't come alone. Sakib hated driving, so he talked to his friends. No one wanted to drive to another city in the middle of the night, and he was already about to cancel. But one of his good friends, Hashim Ijazuddin, agreed to keep Sakib company. He was the kind who was always ready to help. Only Hashim didn't know his friend was blackmailing anyone. He thought it would be fun to drive on the night highway, listen to music, and chat. Hashim and Sakib arrived at the car park a little early and somehow sensed something was wrong, that Ansreen and Mahek were setting them up. They didn't even stop or get out to avoid a physical confrontation. They just did a lap and drove back onto the motorway. Immediately, a blue Seat Leon pulled in behind them, followed by the Bukhari's Audi. During the chase, Mahek called Sakib from her mother's phone and told him what she was going to do to him. At 1:20 a.m., a petrol station camera recorded 3 cars racing down the road. From the side, it looked like the blue sedan was chasing Hashim's silver Skoda, and the Audi was chasing the blue sedan. They were going about 160 kilometers per hour, and it looked extremely dangerous. Right after the call from Mahek, Sakib dialed 999 and reported that their car was being pursued. He tried to explain to the operator that 2 cars were chasing them and trying to block them on the road. The operator told Sakib to head to the nearest police station immediately, but unfortunately, the guys had no such opportunity. From the transcript, it seemed the dispatcher didn't believe Sakib. She asked why he thought they were being chased. The terrified guy said the people behind them were wearing balaclavas, masks with eye slits. He feared for his life and the life of his friend Hashim, who was driving, but couldn't give their exact location. The emergency operator kept asking questions when the blue sedan rammed the back of the Skoda and the Audi pinned them from the side. Then there was a crash, and the line went dead. At 1:30 a.m., Hashim and Sakib's car was forced off the road at full speed, hit the central barrier, flipped over it, smashed into a tree, split in half, and burst into flames instantly. The other 2 cars continued down the motorway before stopping at the next lay-by. CCTV captured 2 people getting out, checking the cars for damage, then getting back in and driving off in the opposite direction. All 8 people watched from their windows as a huge fire raged at the crash site, but not one of them thought to call emergency services to try to save the young men burning alive. It later emerged that Ansreen collapsed on the seat, sobbing uncontrollably, while Mahek tried to comfort her. The blue sedan and Audi parked in a nearby area. All passengers got out, and 7 of them went for a walk around the streets, supposedly to get some night air after a heavy dinner. The walk lasted about an hour. One person, Mohammed, went straight home. The others coordinated their cover story in case the police called them. Then they returned to the cars and drove home. Meanwhile, the fire burned so fiercely that firefighters couldn't put it out immediately. When they finally got close enough to the burned-out car, they saw 2 bodies inside, Sakib Hussein and Hashim Ijazuddin. Their lives ended at just 21 years old. It was stated that they both died as a result of the car hitting several obstacles. The impact was truly serious. The car split in 2 and the engine flew off to the side. So saving the guys before the fire started would have been impossible anyway. Investigators quickly established the car hadn't crashed on its own. They checked nearby CCTV and learned about Sakib's 999 call. The footage showed 2 cars chasing the silver Skoda with Sakib and Hashim inside at high speed. The vehicles were immediately identified and tracked via the automatic number plate recognition system. The Bukhari women hadn't even returned home when police were already at their door. The Audi involved in the chase and Mahek's call to Sakib's phone during the pursuit led officers straight to the address. The door was opened by Mahek's teenage brother. Before he could react, he was told he was under arrest for the murder of 2 people. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night in pajamas, opening the door, and before your eyes adjust, being arrested. It's impossible to tell if it's a nightmare or harsh reality. The boy naturally panicked, but hearing about the car crash, started proving to police that he didn't even have a driving license and had spent the night at home. Officers quickly realized they had the wrong person, apologized for the mistake, and let him go. Just as he exhaled and relaxed, he was hit with another bombshell. The car crash had been caused by his mother and sister. The fact was that his mother's phone number was registered in her son's name. Later that day, 11th February 2022, the authorities appeared again at the Bukhari residence to question Mahek and Ansreen. Both women were in pajamas and looked very calm. Mahek told investigators a completely fabricated story about where she had been that night. The girl really had been among the first to witness the strange chase. Moreover, she had almost been affected by their actions on the road. Mahek described the events as if recounting the most ordinary parking situation somewhere in the city center. She looked very composed and sincerely convinced in her words. With gestures, she showed how the cars had been moving on the motorway. The only difference from the real picture in Mahek's story was that she and her mom had been bystanders. According to the girl, she and Ansreen were driving in their own Audi, when suddenly the car in front of them started accelerating and then crashed into the barrier. Mahek had no idea who was in that car because she always kept her distance from other vehicles. She also mentioned the blue car and said she got the impression that these two cars were in some kind of survival race. The blue sedan was slightly to the left, and the girl had to constantly slow down so as not to get caught up in the racer's maneuvers. Mom advised Mahek to stay away from their moves, but it wasn't always possible. Unfortunately, Miss Bukhari noticed neither the registration plate nor any distinctive features. She couldn't even name the make of the car. When the crash happened, Mahek supposedly saw the blue sedan stop, so she herself continued on her way. Ansreen convinced her that the drivers might be drunk and it was unsafe to stop near them, so Mahek drove on. In reality, the TikToker's behavior during questioning told a lot about her character. She was the type people say will walk over corpses just to achieve her goals. Mahek was calm and confident in her own story. She pretended not to know who was driving the blue sedan and thought it would work. Police simply let Mahek talk everything that came to her mind. They knew the girl was digging herself deeper into her own lies. From the very beginning, the motive of the crime was quite clear. Sakib's relatives told officers that he had been in a relationship with an older woman he affectionately called Anzie. He had even introduced her to his sister. But mother and daughter denied any connection to the deceased guy. Ansreen had deleted all records and photos proving their affair from her phone. But detectives were able to access Sakib's cloud albums where every photo and every video was filled with love or whatever was between them. Investigators also discovered call logs showing constant contact between the drivers of the blue sedan and the Audi on the night of the disaster, and they traced the call to Sakib that came from Mahek right before the crash. Events developed rapidly. All 8 people who had been in the 2 above-mentioned cars that night were detained. 7 of them remained in custody. The blue sedan was driven by 22-year-old Rais Jamal. It also carried 22-year-old Natasha Akhtar, 22-year-old Sanav Gula Mustafa, and 27-year-old Amir Jamal. In the Audi were 45-year-old Ansreen Bukhari, 23-year-old Mahek Bukhari, and 21-year-old Mohammed Patel. The Audi was driven by 29-year-old Rekhan Karwan. They were all charged with a serious crime that took the lives of 2 young people, and all of them unanimously denied involvement in the crash. All the passengers and driver of the blue sedan assured officers that they were on their way to a friend's house to play Monopoly. They did see something burning on the roadside, but it had nothing to do with them. They were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mahek also continued to stick to her own version, but after some time decided to change tactics and admitted that her mom really had had an affair. Everything had been fine until Sakib started threatening to show up at the Bukhari house and tell her father everything. Mahek just wanted to protect her mom. That night they were going to give the ex-lover money so he would stop bothering them. To avoid going alone to another city, she asked her friend to escort them. The girl was worried that her mother's ex-lover might attack them. Mahek and Ansreen were going to have a serious talk with Sakib and convince him to leave the family alone. As for the blue sedan full of other people, Mahek barely knew any of them because they were Rakan's friends. She thought the guy had invited them just in case as backup. It never even crossed Mahek's mind what the people in the blue car were planning. The girl tried in every way to convince police that this time she wasn't lying. She said the only reason she had lied was that she was ashamed of her mom's affair with a young guy and didn't want it to appear in the news. In the end, Mahek even tried to convince investigators that Sakib wanted to die himself and deliberately made Hashim crash the car. Officers were shocked by the stories the pretty young girl spun in the interview room. They asked directly whether Sakib, wanting suicide, decided to take his best friend with him to the next world, and Mahek nodded affirmatively. The authorities didn't believe her, and all the participants were brought to trial. Only one of the 8 managed to walk free. The first trial was complete chaos. 7 people sat on the dock. Most of them had their own versions of the events of that night, slightly or completely different from each other. Prosecutors decided to split all the defendants into groups. The trial of Mahek and Mahek Bukhari and the 2 car drivers was decided to be held separately from the rest of the friends who were in the cars. They might simply not have known the plan and had no way to influence the situation. Having gone out with friends, they unwittingly got into trouble that ended very tragically. What can you do at 160 kilometers per hour? And that is not a statement, just an assumption that still had to be figured out. Another complication in the case was the victims themselves. Cannabis was found in Hashim's blood during the autopsy, and he was driving at high speed. Defense lawyers immediately latched onto this detail and tried to shift all the blame onto the victims who supposedly provoked the crash themselves. Then Sakib also came under fire. It turned out Ansreen was not the only woman Sakib had threatened when she tried to leave him. A witness in no way connected to the defendants testified, so it didn't seem she had a motive to lie for them. The woman said she met Sakib at a party in a club. He begged for her phone number. At the time, she already had a boyfriend, but she gave the number to the stranger just to get rid of him. In the end, Sakib started flooding her with messages. He also called 15 to 20 times a day, threatening to smash her car or come to her house. The woman contacted local police 3 times because she was terrified of the new acquaintance. Overall, this information painted Sakib in a very bad light. The jury was also shown text messages the guy sent Ansrain threatening to send explicit photos and videos to the Bukhari family and post them online if the woman didn't pick up and talk to him. It all sounded quite frightening. However, the messages were taken out of context, and it was unknown what exactly provoked those threats. Was it banal blackmail, or did Sakib simply not know what to do with his rejected feelings? Unfortunately, only the young man himself could give a reliable answer, but his life, alas, had tragically ended. Any trial is very hard for the victim's family and friends. It was especially difficult for Hashim's parents, who had nothing to do with the whole thing. The young man only got behind the wheel for his friend and drove to another city at night at his request, where he ended up meeting his own death. And now his loved ones had to listen to their son being accused of smoking weed. But most of all, internet users sympathized with the Bukhari husband and son, because during the trial, the family essentially fell apart. Ansreen's husband did not visit her while she was in custody, but still appeared at some stages of the proceedings. Though perhaps he only wanted to support his daughter. For Mr. Bukhari, the worst thing was that the case became public. During the hearings, not only his wife's affair with 21-year-old Sakib was discussed. Information about Ansreen's first infidelity was also made public. The prosecution stated that, in their opinion, Mahek, her mother, and friend Rakan had planned together how to get rid of Sakib. These 3 were the main masterminds of the crime, and it was they who lured the guy to that car park in another city, supposedly to hand over money. Whether they wanted to attack him there or had already decided to stage a crash on the road, the result would have been the same: threat to life. Chasing a car at 160 kilometers per hour and trying to force it off the road can only be done with specific intentions. The defense of Ansrein and her daughter Mahek was madness in its essence. Lawyers assured that these women had become victims of a crazy stalker. Mother and daughter only wanted to talk to Sakib that night, and nothing more. And although they had made several questionable wrong decisions, Sakib was to blame for instilling terror in them. The Bukharis simply had no other choice. Out of 8 people, only 7 were arrested. 21-year-old Mohammed Patel, who was in the Audi, left the company immediately after the crash. He was the main witness. For some reason, he was released. Some internet users believe he is innocent. Others say he was released because he cooperated with police. Either way, the guy confirmed the story that matched the transcript of Sakib's 999 call. Mohammed said Sakib really was being chased at high speed. All participants were wearing balaclavas, so cameras wouldn't capture their faces. Rakan called the driver of the blue sedan and asked him to ram the Skoda from behind. The guy said he was the last to join the group and had no idea what the others were planning and what he had gotten into. He was terrified by what was happening and fled as soon as the opportunity arose. Whether that was really the case is unknown, but his testimony greatly helped the investigation. The remaining 5, apart from Ansrein, Mahek, and Mohammed, insisted they had done nothing and knew nothing. They were just going for a drive and then to play Monopoly. Each participant in this wild chase had personal arguments in their defense. Rais Jamal, who was driving the blue sedan, said he just wanted to scare the guys in the Skoda because one of them was blackmailing the women, but the chase got out of control. Amir Jamal, a passenger in the blue car, said he was high and didn't understand what was happening. Natasha Akhtar assured that she was in love with the driver, so she didn't want to anger him with comments about dangerous driving. According to her, all boys drive like crazy. In the future, the girl planned to become a criminal defense lawyer, so getting jailed didn't fit into her plans. Sanav Gula Mustafa, also a passenger in the blue car, explained that his father was dying of cancer and he was the only one caring for him. The sick man could no longer eat, drink, or even use the toilet without help. Sanav said he would never risk leaving his father without help for some barely known women. The guy spent whole days caring for his sick father and went out just to get some air and change the oppressive atmosphere. In the end, when his father died, the son couldn't even attend the funeral. Discussions about the degree to which all these people were involved in the deaths of 2 young guys continue to this day. But the fact remains, they participated in this deadly chase wearing balaclavas. Perhaps they thought it was all a fun game, thrills, and saw nothing terrible in it. However, being in the pursuer's car automatically made them participants in the crime. After several hearings, the jury retired from the courtroom. They deliberated for more than 28 hours and finally returned with the verdict. Ansrein Bukhari, her daughter Mahek Bukhari, the driver of the blue sedan Rais Jamal, and the driver of the Audi Rekan Karwan were found guilty of the murder of Hashim and Sakib. Mahek was sentenced to life imprisonment and must serve at least 31 years and 8 months in prison before applying for parole. Ansrein was sentenced to life imprisonment and at least 26 years and 9 months of imprisonment. Rais and Rakan also received life sentences. Rais must serve a minimum of 27 years. He had extra added for driving without a license. And Rakan will spend 26 years and 10 months behind bars without the right to parole. Sanav, Amir, and Natasha were found guilty of manslaughter. They received from 11 to 15 years. Mohammed was not charged. Because of the reckless actions of one adult woman who succumbed to the charm of youth and plunged into the power of love fantasies, several people suffered. Sakib Hussain was far from a perfect person and really behaved inappropriately, but his behavior definitely did not deserve death. It is incredibly stupid and monstrous to take someone's life just to hide your own mistake. If you have finished watching, you are a real fan of true crime. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notifications, and put the like. See you in the next video.